www.88beats.com. Beats, graphics, studio design. We do it all, baby.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Bones. Hey, I'm going to show you guys how to do some mixing, some mastering, some all that kind of stuff. Because everybody's asking me how I can, how to bring up volume, how to maximize your volume without distortion. And a lot of people hear my mixes and they wonder how I get clean mixes. So I'll just show you guys a little bit of secrets that I use, like things that you can do on every hip hop track, and it still makes a difference in the track and in the mixing. So I'm gonna start off with the beat with just the track out. So if you have a beat with track outs, or if you have an individual track, whatever, I'm gonna use one of my beats. It's all tracked out. I got the master files. So there is, I believe, there's like 20 or something tracks from the beat. So I'll go over that first, and then we'll get into the vocals and stuff. All right. So here I am, opened up Sonar. I'm just gonna be using one of my tracks that I finished. This is a good track for me to kind of demonstrate stuff, because the mix itself the beat itself was kind of muddy in some areas. I felt like I could make the kicks better. So I'm gonna go through kick drums, because that was a big question. A lot of people were asking how to mix kick drums, 808, and the clap, and then I'm gonna blend in the vocals with that when we're all done with that. So going over here to here's the kick drum that I was using. So you can hear the kick. Alright, now what I noticed right off the bat is with the kick, it needs to be boosted in around the 150 hertz. Now around 150 hertz is where you're going to get the punch. Anything around 40 to 60 to 80, around that area is going to be more of the sub bass, the low ends of the kick, mainly for 808s. That's the 808 area. So I don't want them to fight for the spot. I want them to sit nicely. So I'm going to make the kick punchy and the 808 bassy, and they're going to blend nice and well together. So what I did here is I took 50 hertz and I lowered it 3 decibels on this particular kick, and then I raised 150 hertz. I raised that by 4 decibels, and that got me more of a solid. So experiment with that with your kick drums. If you want them more punchy, that's what you're going to want to do. You want to boost the 150 hertz. I have another kick drum on here. Now this one's more of a low kick, so it's going to be a deeper kick. You can hear it has a lot more rumble, has a lot more drag to it. It's not as quick and punchy. So this one I'm going to do the same. I want to boost the 150, but not necessarily boost it. I'm just going to take away around 60 hertz. So on this one I got 40 hertz, and it's kind of bending all the way up to 60. I brought that down 4 decibels. And all these little changes with your kicks and whatnot, they're very subtle changes. And when I make beats, I layer everything. Everything's got 2 or 3 kick drums, 2 or 3 snares. I don't ever put just one kick and then one snare or nothing like that. I always layer my stuff. Gives more originality, thickens the punches on the kicks and everything like that. So definitely that's something you want to do. Now the kicks sound cool. What I notice is with this clap, it's very thin. If you listen to it. Okay, so it's too thin for my liking. So what I wanted to do with the clap, I want to make it more, less with the high ends pretty much. So what I'm going to do is I took a normal EQ on here, and I took it at about 500 hertz. I raised it 5 decibels, and doing that, so that makes it a little bit thicker, makes it sound a little bit more warm. So that's what I was going for originally. So those are 2 things I noticed out of my beat right away. If I listen to the beat now, So far it sounds cool. I'm gonna skip ahead in the track, and it's got a 808. Alright, so sub bass sounds good. What I did when I had originally tracked this beat out, I tracked it into Fruity Loops and then I brought it here. All these sounds were taken from my Chord Chrome keyboard. Let's see. If you want your bass line or your 808s to really stick out, you feel like they need a lot more bass, very simple. Take an EQ band, put it at about 50 to 60 hertz and raise it. See, is if you take it away, it's something you'll notice right off the bat in that 50 hertz area. That's where you're gonna want. That's the sweet spot for the subs. So 60 hertz to be exact is where you'll hear your like if you got 10 or 12-inch subs in your car, you're gonna hear them around 60 hertz. So boost that if you feel like it's not enough in your car. Another thing I like to do with the beat before I even lace the vocals on it, I send it to a bus track, which is up here on my second monitor, and I make sure that the volume isn't too crazy. So, and you'll notice right away it's peaking like all hell. I dropped it down 4 decibels. I probably might want to, when I record, bring it down to 6, maybe 7. And that looks about right. It's not clipping, so I know when I have my headphones on and I'm listening to live feedback while recording, it's not gonna be too complicated to record some vocals. And so the beat sounds cool. Get the beat how you want it to sound. With me, when I track my stuff out to Fruity Loops, I do use FL Studio mainly as my kind of organizer. I've been using FL Studio for a long time, since they originally came out. And so for me, I'm just so familiar with it that if I use anything else, it's going to take me like 3 times the time to make a beat like this. This beat in particular took me about 30 or 40 minutes to make. I made it on my Chord Chrome synthesizer, and the sounds that I play, I just track them into FL Studio, and then I slice them, pattern them up, and I put it together. Then after that, I individually track them out to buses on my mixer in FL, and I compress some kick drums, make them louder, put some EQ on stuff like I'm doing in here, and then after I feel like it's okay, bring it back into the other DAW that I record my vocals on. This happens to be Sonar. Bring it into there, get it ready for vocals, doing this kind of stuff. This is just another step in my mixing phase. Then after this sounds cool, I'll do some test runs, check the audio. If it all sounds cool, man, I'll lay my vocals down. So, which I've already done, so I'll bring up the vocals right now. Now, these are the lead vocals here. I'm gonna take away all the effects and let you guys hear how it sounds raw.
I live my life so passionate, in the end I know it's worth it. In the past, without Christ, most of me was worthless. Better myself, that's the mission, yeah, I see me working. Now I praise God, yeah, I worship, had to be a servant. Hatred in their hearts when they hear me on the song. Giving thanks to the one that we all call God.
Okay, so things that you'll notice right away, it's very, very warm. There's a lot of low ends in the vocals. That is how I like recording. I like a lot of natural tones and low ends in the vocals when you're recording. The raw takes should have low ends. If they have a lot of highs, try to eliminate that, because that's hard to get rid of. It's harder to, it's harder to make artificial low ends, like if your vocals are sound real wet and there's not a lot of warmth to them, it's hard to replicate that natural warm sounding. So I record them very, very natural sounding. Make sure you have a natural sounding mic. A decent mic is preferred. Another thing I do when I record my verse vocal or any vocals I do, I have 2 tracks recorded simultaneously. They'll record at the same time, and one's panned 100% left, one's 100% right. So these things, that's making it a stereo track. Okay, the reason why I do this is, one, it's a stereo track instead of mono. So now these vocals you know, you understand that. And then another thing is I can record them. I mean, these things aren't anywhere near peaking. So at -3 decibels is way too high for vocals. These are only, I mean, look at them. I think the highest frequency I get on that chart is -15 decibels. So that's perfect. You're going to have very clean sounding vocals. By the time you compress them, EQ them and everything, they're going to be, man, they're going to be perfect. So if you're recording and you're recording them really hot because you can't hear yourself, the beat's too loud, just put the beat to a fader or to a, to a bus, and bring down the volume on that bus, and then send your vocals to the main output in its own bus, if that makes sense. So my vocals, when I adjust this volume, it doesn't adjust the beat. When I adjust this volume, it doesn't adjust the vocals. So I have all my buses separated with everything I do. Now, what I will do with my vocals is I got an EQ. Now the EQs in Sonar, this EQ in particular, when you have your bus, you're going to right click Audio Effects, VST2, and then LP64 EQ. That brings this up. I take the preset vocal lift. That seems to work well with me because I just want to tone down the lows and bring up the highs just a little bit. And it's not a lot, it's just a little bit that's going to make a difference. So here at 70, around mid 70 hertz, you got -5 decibels that it takes down, and that's going to get rid of the bassiness in my voice. So if we mute all the other plugins, and I'll show you what this sounds like, subtle changes are what's going to make a difference. So just know when you're mixing, not one tweak of a parameter is going to make it sound fantastic.
I live my life so passionate, in the end I know it's worth it. In the past, without Christ, most of me was worthless. Better myself, that's the mission, yeah, I see me working. Now I praise God here, I worship, glad to be a servant. Hatred in their hearts when they hear me on a song.
See, so it just gives a little bit more air in the vocals, so that's going to help it separate from the mix, because the mix got a lot of low ends, a lot of kicks and 808s. We're going to put my vocals, right in the middle of the beats mix. So you'll hear the low ends below it, and then you'll hear the background instruments going around my vocals, and the vocals will sit up right nicely in the mix. So I like my vocals to stand out in my mixes. If you guys hear my music, I like my words to be heard, you know. I have messages in my songs. I want people to understand what I'm saying. So for me, it's very important to make sure every word is heard perfectly and clearly. So lifting up the vocals, getting rid of the low ends in it is definitely going to help. Now here's a big effect that a lot of artists, rappers in particular, aren't using because they don't know about. This is called a De-Esser. What these things do, if you don't know what a De-Esser is, it takes a certain frequency and cuts it very quickly. So if you have a lot of S, like the sounds of an S, T's, C's, B's, D's, that little hiss you get at the end of your words, that's real high, and sometimes it's ear piercing in some cars. Like sometimes I'll get someone's mixtape, they'll be passing around the streets, and I'll listen to it, and it's just so sharp on the ears, and the high ends are so high that I can't even listen to it. I got to make so many adjustments in my car stereo, and you know, I don't want to do all that. So let's just put a de-esser on there. And this thing, for me particularly, my threshold is about 44 decibels. Now the threshold, if you move it all the way down to 0, it's not doing nothing. The plugin's pretty much off. So we'll play it without the de-esser.
I live my life so passionate, in the end I know it's worth it. In the past, without Christ, most of me was worthless. Better myself, that's the mission, yeah, I see me working. Now I praise God here, I worship, glad to be a servant. Hatred in their hearts when they hear me on a song. Giving thanks to the one that we all call.
See, so that's good. The de-esser's on there. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's a preset in there called male de-esser. You can browse the presets right here. Backing vocal for females, female vocal, all sorts of different presets in most of these plugins. So experiment with that a little bit. The threshold's all you're going to focus on. The presets will show you what kilohertz you're going to be at, but usually the hissing sounds, you can point them out right away. So next thing I do, I always put reverb on my vocals. It makes everything wider in the mix. You can do stereo reverbs where it sits around, more of a surround sound. The reverb I use in Sonar that I like a lot because of its features it has. Right click the effects area, whether it be on your bus or it's down here on your tracks. Right click wherever, go to Audio Effects, VST2, Nomad, and then you're going to see, where is this thing? Blueverb. It's the first one on my list. I don't know where it's on yours, but it's called Reverb. Open that thing up. All of these presets, man, there's tons of them. Just go through all the presets, listen to them, and figure out which one is, you know, is sounding like it's where you're trying to go with your track. So for me, this medium hall works for the track. It's set well in the mix. Now how this thing works, if you turn this all the way up, this is how it sounds.
Be a servant, hatred in their hearts when they hear me on the song, giving thanks to.
See, so that's all you need to do is just focus on the mix level. I mean, you can mess with some pre-delays, the ambience. You can mess with the amount of the ambience you have, which is right here and here. You got decay, damping. If it's too wet, you can lower that, whatever. Just experiment with these knobs. They all do different stuff. I always put the stereo width to 100 because the reverb sound, it's not the vocals itself, but the reverb sound that you get is going to widen out and be more of a stereo sound than anything. It's not going to sound like a mono center speaker. It's going to surround sound. So if you have, you know, whether you listen to a home entertainment system in the car, that's the best bet. You're going to want to make sure everything's surrounding you. So next thing I do, compression. This compressor, audio effects, VST2, Nomad, compressor CP2S-3. That one, I like this one the best because you can adjust the threshold, the ratio, the attack, and the release. So all the stuff that I usually use, like 3-to-1 ratios, it's all in lead vocal 2. You go to lead vocal 2 and it's pretty much set up for you. So that presets for hip hop and for you know, for rapping, I mean, that's perfect. Just adjust the threshold. Threshold of 0 means it's not working. It's not going to do nothing. It's not compressing at all.
Know it's worth it.
All the way up. Compressing the hell out of it.
That's the mission, yeah, see me working. Now I praise God here, I worship, glad to be a servant. Hatred in their hearts when they hear me on the song.
All you're trying to do with compression is you're just trying to get all of the volumes to sound the same. So you want to take away the highest peak part and bring it down to where the lowest low one was. So the compression is going to bring the lowest part of your vocals, where you back away from the mic usually when you're ready to take a breath. It's going to bring that up, and then it's going to take the high peaking part and bring it down to that level. Everything's going to sound like it's around the same volume. You're not going to have the up and down stuff. So that compressor is perfect. Any compressor you use, just adjust the ratio, do a 3-to-1 ratio. Let's see what this one's at. The attack's at 75 milliseconds. Release is at 447.7. Yeah, that's that. I mean, after I apply the reverb on my vocal tracks, there's a little effect that I like to put on. Sometimes it depends on what I'm going for. For this particular track, it sounds right. You can find this effect. Let's see, it's audio effects VST2. It's called Stereo Imager. Okay, so this little thing opens up. Now, this is a very subtle thing that you usually won't notice unless you're listening into a car. So I hear a lot of dudes mixtapes and songs, and they sound clean, and then when I put them in the car, or I put them on my TV with my surround sound system, it's like their vocals just sit in one spot. They're just in the middle of the mix the entire time. So to avoid that, especially with like the chorus, you want the chorus to be a surround sound. So there's some tricks to that, and especially with the verse, you want it a little subtle, but at the same time you want to widen it out and make it kind of blend with the overall sounds of the background. This thing's great for that. I'll play it a bit so you can hear what I'm talking about.
I live my life so passionate, in the end I know it's worth it. In the
That's in the
past,
center.
when I Christ, most of me was worthless. Better myself, that's the mission, yeah, I see me working. Now I praise God here, I worship, glad to be a servant. Hatred in their hearts when they hear me on the song. Giving thanks to the one that we all call God.
See, so it's just a little bit that I'm going to move it, because when you're messing with this effect, you can hear me slide it left and right. Just play with it a little bit. You'll hear the difference in the vocals. This thing's great as well if you have background instruments that you feel like need to go around, because you never want to have, say you have 3 different synthesizers in your beat, you don't want all 3 to sit mono right there in the same spot. They're all going to clash for that. They're going to fight for the sound, you know? It's easier to mix stuff when they're surrounding, when everything spreads out and out and out. For strings, I always put on a stereo wide. I always widen that mix. With strings, man, I always put it as wide as I can almost make it, to where if I was on a 5.1 Dolby Digital surround sound system, I would have the strings heard all the way around on the sides. For stuff like for the chorus especially, I'll put straight in the middle and keep the strings around that. On this beat in particular, there's this little that little synthesizer, I don't know what kind of synth it is. It's just some quick synth thing. It's a common sound that you guys hear in some trap beats and some club beats. That thing, I put a stereo imager on that, and I widened it out just a little bit. And then my vocals, I'm gonna widen them out just as much as that. That's why I put this on my vocals, because I wanted to sit with that instrument. If you get what I'm saying. And the link to the song, the finished song, is going to be below this video in the description, so check it out and you'll hear what I'm talking about when you hear the final mix. So after I do that, there's a tempo delay. This, I don't put a crazy delay to where you can hear it for days on end. This one's just it's going to be a subtle delay. What I did with this one is radio delays is the preset in this particular delay. If you want to see the exact one I'm using, it's VST2 Nomad. It's tempo delay right here. This one's great because I can adjust the left speaker, the right speaker, and the center. So that's cool as well, because like I said, you want everything stereo. You want to surround stuff around the listeners when they're in the car, or when they're on earbuds, when you have headphones on. It's the same thing. So this one, 7 dBs on the sides, and the middle I just brought down to the bottom, because I just wanted, for this particular sound, I wanted to widen out the vocals. I mean, you can listen to this.
I live my life so passionate, in the end I know it's worth it. In the past when I cried, most of me was worthless.
See what I mean? So those, turn it up all the way, it goes on and never stops. So I play, what I do is I put them all the way down, press play.
I live my life so passionate, in the end I know it's worth it. In the past when I cried, most of me was worthless. Better than myself, that's the mission, yeah, see me working. Now I pray.
See, that's good. That's what I wanted. I just wanted a little bit of a feedback going back and forth. Just subtle, just enough to where if you were really listening on some really nice earbuds, you could hear this little thing going back and forth with the vocals. So that's all I'm going for on that. It's widening the vocals as well. It's gonna bring them with the mix. All of it's gonna mix in together a lot nicer. The final thing I do now, if you are using Sonar, and like I said, with all these plugins, if you're using Pro Tools, Cubase, whatever you're using, I use all DAWs. I'm not limited to any digital audio workstation. I can use anything. So difference is the names of the effects. So Sonar, they call them different stuff than what you would have if you have Waves plugins. And if you have Sonar and you have Waves plugins, you can still use it. It's not like only for Pro Tools. So in Sonar though, there's this little, I don't know what the hell to call it. It's like a limiter compressor thing. And what this is going to do is it's going to maximize the volume without distortion. Now that's only if your vocal takes have no distortion. Once you record and you have distortion in the recording, you can't get rid of it. So make sure that your raw vocals, what you're recording when you're rapping, it's not distorting. So for me in particular, I want to make this volume a little louder, because if I play without this, if I play the whole mix together, the vocals are getting submerged under the beat.
In the end I know it's worth it. In the past when I cried, most of me was worthless. Better than myself, that's the mission, yeah, I see me working. Now I praise God, yeah, I worship, glad to be a servant. Hatred in their hearts when they hear me on the song. Giving thanks to the one that we all call God. Carry on, I'ma do me.
See, so that thing works like magic. It's gonna bring it up just enough to where it's sitting above the mix. So with me in particular, I like my vocals to stand above the mix a little bit, but at the same time I want some instruments to go over my vocals, but I don't ever put it, like if on this one the little background sounds you hear, like the strings and whatnot, they can be heard at the same time as my vocals. So by doing that, I spread them away from the vocals, like I was telling you with the stereo imaging. So if you make everything go around and your vocals in the middle, you're going to be able to tell what's going on without it clashing. If you stick everything in the same frequencies in the same areas of a mix, you're going to start getting a lot of stuff fighting for their position. It's not good. The way to avoid it and have a clean mix is to take time and make sure everything has its section. Every piece, every instrument is going to have its own little spot to go in. So that sounds cool. The vocals sound cool there. Now on the hook and on the ad-libs, I do the same thing. It's the same process, repeated for everything else. I put EQ on them. The EQ is different for everything I do. For the hook vocals, I wanted them a little bit lower because I'll let you hear the chorus. The chorus is a little different.
Hear me once more. They don't want to hear me talk. They don't get. Hear me once more. They don't want to hear me talk. Hear me once more. They don't want to hear me talk. They don't care for when I speak. They don't even look my way when they walk by me. And when I fall, there's nobody near me. They don't want to hear me talk. They don't care for when I speak. They don't even look my way when they walk by me. And when I fall, there's nobody near me. Y'all can never stop me.
Okay, so the chorus is a little jacked up there. I gotta mix that some more. So pretty much a quick run through of what I do. EQ, compression, reverb, delays. Those are pretty much the only effects you're really going to need. De-Esser is huge with rap vocals, especially with a lot of dudes. They don't have a Neumann microphone that has a lot of warmth in it. They need to cut out the S's. So a De-Esser, use a De-Esser. Now another thing with when you're mixing, you'll notice all the final thing I put is the brick wall. It does matter which order everything is. I have everything stacked from the first one to the last in the order that I want them. So if you put the compression all the way at the top and then you put things underneath the compression, you compress the vocals and then you put delay on top of the compression. If you put the compression last, now you're compressing all the effects with your vocals. So you want the compression to be last. You don't want it to be first and then, okay, I'm going to compress my vocals, then I'm going to add delay, and then I'm going to add some reverb. Well, now you're going to notice that it's going to go back to peaking, and it's going to be all over the place because you just took something that was compressed and then you just added on to it. So especially with EQ, a lot of people will compress, and then they'll put an EQ on top of a compressor. It should be the other way around. Compression should be the last stage. It should be the very bottom of your effects channel. That'll make a difference as well. For my ad-libs, for everything, this is my ad-libs bus. Same thing, I use the same exact effects, I just use them differently. So like the EQ with my ad-libs, I wanted to make them real more rich. Man, I took out the lows a lot in my ads. See, I just took the lows completely and just waved them down, took the highs up. Very simple stuff, not too technical. With this one, I did a little bit more, taking out the muddy sounding, the boxiness. Another thing that a lot of people say is I'll have a boxy sound, and I'll demonstrate to you what they mean is.
Glad to be a servant, hatred in their hearts when they hear me on the song. Giving thanks to the one that real called God. Carry on, I'ma do me.
So a lot of people have that boxiness sound they record in the closet, and then it gets kind of like muffled, like they're talking through a megaphone or something. So that's very simple. You can get anywhere around 1.0 kilohertz, and that's around 900 hertz. So if you go from 800 to 800 hertz to 1.1 kilohertz, that's the area that you want to take down if you got that boxy sound. So that's easy. Just make a Make a little channel thing there on the EQ, a band pretty much. Take that down however much you need to. See, alright, that sounds cool. I'm liking how the verse sounds. I'm liking how the beat sounds with the mix. Now what I'm going to do is one final thing. Now let's say you're ready, you want to get this track ready for mastering. Let's bounce this thing and get it sent over to your mastering engineer, or if you're going to master it, let's get ready for mastering. Okay, so you'll see my master fader over here. Always keep this low. The mix overall. When you're mixing down stuff and getting it ready for mastering, make sure it's not peaking. You don't want that thing to peak. It needs to be at a low volume. You can always bring it back up high. When I'm mixing in Sonar or any other DAW, I put it up loud and it can peak all at once, and I'm just getting a feel for what it sounds like at that volume, at a radio level volume. Then when I'm ready to bounce it out, yeah, I turn down the volume on the master fader. I don't adjust all the channels, so I'm not going to take all these and turn them up and down. They're at the volume I want. Keep them there. Just turn this down. And you know, if you turn it down like 5 decibels, when you master it, you can bring it up 10 decibels and it sounds good. Alright? So that's what you're going to do first. Another thing I like to do before mastering, since I'm here, I'm already doing it, is I add on the, let's go on the master bus, I'm going to add an EQ. Now I'm going to just roll off the highs. So take the last fader, just roll it off a bit like there. Now what that's going to do, it's going to just get rid of the noise that we really don't pick up anyways. We don't really hear that kind of noise. I'm going to roll it off, so it's not even going to concern me. It's going to make it a little bit easier on the high ends. It's not going to be so harsh. Another thing you do is you listen to the whole mix. And the reason why I put that little notch right here at, what am I at? 500 hertz. 500 to 600 hertz. You get a lot of that boxiness sound like this. It just sounds bad. You can't understand any of the mix. So I noticed that right away when I started playing it, that there was a little bit too much there. So what I did is I just took EQ at 575 roughly on the hertz, take it down to like 1.2. When they hear me on the song, giving thanks to the one that we all call God. Carry on, I'ma do me, I'll do what you want. Life is empty until God came into it. I put another band at 8.5 kilohertz. I put it up 3 decibels. That one I just want it to be a little bit, I wanted it to be a little lifted there on the high ends. Now I want to boost the subs a little bit, the low bass. I'm going to go 50 hertz, I'm going to boost it 2 dBs. And like I said, all these things are very subtle. You don't need to move it up 10 decibels to make a difference. Just 2, 3. Just play around with it a little bit, listen. You got to have an ear for music, so just take your time, listen to this kind of stuff, and figure out what's going to sound best for your track. Okay, so after I do some EQ on there, that sounds cool. I don't master with all these tracks here like this. What I'll do is I'll bounce all of this down. I'll get a reference track. Now, reference tracks are very important. Get a song that sounds similar to yours, that's in the industry, someone big that mixed and engineered it. That's going to be your goal. Make it your goal to sound like theirs. You don't have to rap like this dude or nothing like that. It's just a reference song. You want to make the volume just as loud. You want to make the imaging as good, the stereo panning. You want to make it sound full like theirs. You don't want to make it more bassy or nothing like that. Pick a good reference track. For this one in particular, I mean, for me, I don't really use reference tracks on everything. When I'm mastering, I do that's the very last stage. I'll go through all my tracks. So this is on my mixtape. I took all my tracks on my mixtape, mastered them in 2 days. Took the first track, I think my reference track was, I'm not even sure, I'm pretty sure it was a Lecrae track. I used him as a reference, and it was one of his older tracks because I liked his older engineering than I like his new engineering. Because if anybody listens to Lecrae, his older engineering from like 2 or 3 years ago, man, it was you could understand his vocals a lot more. He wasn't so buried up underneath the beat like a lot of the music on the radio in the industry today is like, it's submerged. Their vocals are submerged under the beat. So I like when the vocals are above it and you can understand every word I'm saying. I don't want you to hear none of the beat, but at the same time I don't want you to like have a hard time hearing what I'm saying. So that's all done. You're going to highlight the whole track, whatever. You're going to bounce this, export audio. Cool, it's all done. Let me know some questions. You guys have some questions. I wanted to make this video and just go over the things that I focus on that help me clean up a mix. Because everybody listens to my stuff, they hit me up and they ask questions. How do I get my beats? It's mainly with my beats. A lot of producers hit me up and they wonder how I can get everything to sit so well. And then the artists as well like my beats because I leave room for the vocals and I don't make everything so loud to where when they get in the studio they gotta turn everything down and EQ everything 10 times before they can even lace the vocals. I do all that stuff before they even get the beat. So that's very important. Take your time. There's always 3 steps in engineering. There's making the beat and doing pre-mixing. That's going to do this stuff when you're making the beat. And then there's going to be opening it up into your DAW, getting it ready for recording, and then there's going to be final mixing, and then there's going to be mastering. So yeah, definitely let me know if you guys have any questions. Hopefully I tackled some stuff you guys were running into problems with. Just feel free to send me messages, send me emails, do whatever you want to get in touch with me. I'll be making some more videos soon, so subscribe and yeah, definitely subscribe to the channel. I got 3 more videos coming. The next one's going to be strictly on mastering in FL Studio, and then I'll do one mastering in Sonar as well. So stay tuned.